Hey, what's going on YouTube? So I recently did a video on the RDB Survival and I'm just trying to get my money's worth out of it, so I figured I'd do a few more videos on it. And in this video, I'm going to do a quick comparison of a few bullpups that I own, and that's coming up. So first things first, all the firearms in this video have been safety checked. They are unloaded. There's no ammunition in the area. And so let me take you real quick on my bullpup journey before we get into it. In 2020, I started saving up for the PS90. And at that time, this was going to be my most expensive firearms purchase. So I was a little bit reluctant to spend the money on the PS90. At that time, they could be found for about $1,600. I jumped onto YouTube to see if I could find something instead of the PS90 that was maybe similar but less expensive. That turned out to be a mistake because I found a couple of videos by Tim over on Military Arms channel on the Kel-Tec MDR or MDRX, I think it was the MDR at the time, as well as the Kel-Tec RDB. So instead of finding something to get instead of the PS90, I found things that I wanted to get in addition to the PS90. So we'll go ahead and start with the PS90. If you don't know, this shoots a 5.7 by 28 millimeter bullet. It looks like a little baby rifle round. I really like the cartridge. It is a little expensive, but it's one of my favorite cartridges. And it might sound stupid, but it is one of my favorites because of the way it looks. You can hold a whole lot in one of these magazines, and it sits sideways in there. Now the PS90 is one of the very few bullpups and rifles in general that I would consider as fully ambidextrous. I cannot stand it. We're gonna get into my pet peeve here. I cannot stand it when a company or a YouTuber refers to a rifle or handgun or anything like that that is fully ambidextrous when you have to swap charging handles, magazine releases, or anything like that. If you have to swap parts, it is not fully ambidextrous in my mind. So a rifle or a handgun that I consider as fully ambidextrous is something that you could take from a right-handed shooter and hand it to a left-handed shooter without having to change anything and it be completely compatible. So the PS90 has a charging handle on both sides. The safety can be accessed from both sides, as well as the magazine release can be accessed from both sides. And to go beyond that, the ejection is out the bottom here, so it wouldn't matter if you are right or left-handed. So the only other one that I know of as of right now that is fully ambidextrous is the MDRX in the forward ejecting configuration. So this is my MDRX. It is a Micron. I do have a tax stamp for any of the short barrel rifles you see here, like the PS90. First thing I did is went home and filed my paperwork so that I could put the correct size barrel on it. So I do have tax stamps for all of this. This is in a Micron configuration. I have it integrally suppressed. But the MDRX has a charging handle on both sides, has safety on both sides. It has magazine release on both sides as well as back here. Now the Micron is only side ejecting. So as far as the side ejecting, that wouldn't be, in my mind, ambidextrous, but it would probably still be fine shooting it left-handed. It would just go across your face, or you could swap this, but again, I said fully requires no swapping. So if you had the 16-inch version with the forward ejecting chute, then I think that you would have no issues handing it to a left-handed shooter, having it eject correctly without hitting anybody in the face. Now, am I left-handed? No. But I want the ability, if I need to, swap firing shoulders without having any issues or reaching across for charging handles or anything like that. And so obviously I got an MDRX. Now the MDRX is my most expensive single firearms purchase in my collection. I then also SBR'd it and got the Micron kit, so that was more added expense. I do want a 308 for the MDRX, but I don't want a caliber conversion. I just want to go ahead and get a whole nother setup. But that's gonna take a little while. I gotta save up for it. Now this is my X95. It is an SBR. This has the 13-inch barrel in it, 13 or 13.5-inch barrel in it. I wasn't planning on getting an X95, but then I held the SBR and I'm like, yes, please. I wasn't terribly impressed with the full size, but I like the small compact packages. This one's definitely not considered fully ambidextrous. The ejection is off to the side. However, I was able to install charging handles on both sides. It's got magazine release on both sides, got safety selector on both sides. Bolt catch, bolt release is also ambi. Bolt catch, bolt release on the MDRX is in about the same spot as the X95. Now this is my RDB Survival. If you've seen the videos that I've done recently, I do not think that this is a safe firearm. I have no intention of shooting this. I threw the sight on here just so that it would be consistent because I have 3X prisms on the others. So I just put this one on here for the purposes of this video and to show you the compact size of the Survival and why I like the Survival in concept so much compared to the others. And that's kind of what drove me to do this video. So others have said, somebody said in a Facebook group, and I know others have said it, I even thought it myself, I thought it was stupid at first and then it grew on me, about the aesthetics of the Survival. People think that it looks stupid. The ergonomics would be terrible, but the ergonomics are actually pretty good. It is just like your older school rifle, how you would grip it. It's actually got pretty good ergonomics, and it's actually really slim and streamlined. So for demonstration, I actually really like it with the 10-round magazine because of how compact it is. Comparing that to, say, like the MDRX, you have the pistol grip that sticks out, and it just makes an overall a larger package. And that's assuming that we had a 10-round magazine in this one too. Now, if you put anything other than a 10-round magazine into the RDB Survival, it looks absolutely ridiculous. Here's a 20-round. Still doesn't look too bad. And here is a 29 round. Now we're starting to look pretty ridiculous. So now it wouldn't be very compact, and it doesn't really make, and this package doesn't really make sense. Now another reason why this grip makes sense is because there are several states where you can't have the pistol grip. So like California, you can't have the pistol grip. It's got to have a fin behind it to block your thumb from going back behind it. This one, you don't have to do that. Now this particular one is still not legal in California. I think it's the overall length requirement that's not met here. So they have another one that's got a slightly longer barrel and a slightly longer handguard, I think. I think the handguard might be a little bit longer as well. But back here, it's all the same. And also, I think that model does not have an adjustable stock. Now this particular one has a crossbolt safety. The standard RDB has a more of like an AR style safety where you rotate it, but the charging handle is only on one side. Now you can swap it, but it is only on one side, not on both sides at the same time. The ejection is back here, it's behind the magazine, so that means that the bolt has very long travel, and you can definitely feel that bolt going a long ways when you fire it. Not so much in this one because I've hardly been able to fire it at all, but the standard RDB, I definitely noticed it. At this point, I have sold my standard RDB, and that's because of the problems I was having with this one. I've gotten rid of just about all of my Kel-Tecs. These are the last 2 Kel-Tecs that I own. So the RDB got sold because of the problems I was having with this. I just don't want to have Kel-Tecs anymore. The standard RDB also has a magazine release that is right behind the pistol grip, and even with my small skinny hands, it would hit me right in here on my hand, which was fairly uncomfortable. I think it's a really bad placement for it. I don't think it was done very well. I actually like the magazine release that's on the Survival better. It is ambi. It also has ambi bolt release. And then this guy right here, this is the RFB. This one is chambered in 308. These 3 are 5.56, and then we got the 5.7 by 28. This one is chambered in 308. This is the heaviest of the bunch just because of the way that it's configured. We have a 2-pound optic setup on here, so that makes it pretty heavy. This whole setup is about 12 pounds. This one is another one that is not fully ambi because the charging handle's only on one side. It's, again, swappable, but inherently it is not fully ambi. We got an ambi safety. The magazine release is in the back, so it is ambi. Same thing with the bolt release. It's on both sides, so that's ambi, but the charging handle is not. The ejection on the RFB is also ambi because it ejects out the front here. So this one is fairly close. Didn't get that locked in there. This one is fairly close, but again, not fully ambi, and it's a Kel-Tec, and because of the issues that I've had with the Survival, I just don't want to have any Kel-Tecs at this point. That's me. I have my 7.5-inch SBR out because I wanted to compare the lengths and show you how they compare to a Bullpup. Now, this has a 7.5-inch barrel, and if you know anything about ballistics, then shorter barrel means less velocity, less time for powder to burn. This has an enormous fireball, but it's a lot of fun. 7.5-inch are also harder to suppress. There are very few companies that make suppressors that are rated for 5.56 and 7.5-inch barrels. So having something with a 16-inch barrel, you're going to have more velocity, more powder burn, and easier to suppress. So this is the Survival right here, and you can see the length comparison here. The Survival is probably about 1/2 inch longer than the 7.5 inches with the stock fully collapsed. But again, has a 16-inch barrel versus the 7.5-inch barrel. The PS90 is shorter. This one has a 10.3-inch barrel. The 5.7 by 28 is optimized for a shorter barrel, and I believe it's 10.3 inches. So it is a couple inches shorter than the 7.5-inch, but this is a very, very small package. So the MDRX has an 11.5-inch barrel on it, but it has a YHM Turbo K suppressor, and you can see that with that Bullpup, even with the suppressor on there, it's probably about 2 inches longer than the 7.5-inch AR. So it's just a little bit longer, but has a suppressor on there, and we still got an 11.5-inch barrel. So 4 inches longer than this guy has, and we still get a suppressor with it. Granted, this is a heavier setup. And with the X95 and the 13-inch barrel, that setup's just a little bit shorter than the 7.5-inch, but we don't have a suppressor on here either, so. But you can see the size comparisons compared to the 7.5-inch. This is a really small package, but it's still kind of chunky, even though it's such a small package, it's got a heavy profile barrel on it, so that keeps the weight up on this package. And I went and grabbed the scale so that we can know. This is the 7.5 inch. That ended up being 7 pounds, 5 ounces, 5.2 ounces. The PS90 is 6 pounds, 4.1 ounces. The 7.5 inch, the MDRX, the X95, they all have weapon lights on them. So that's gonna affect the weights a little bit. I don't have a weapon light on here because why would I if I'm not gonna use it? And the PS90 doesn't have one on it, just so you know that it's not exact like setup comparisons. So the RDB Survival comes in at 6 pounds, 8.5 ounces. The X95 does have a weapon light on it and a primary arms 3X. This guy comes in at 8 pounds, 6.2 ounces. It's pretty chunky. And the MDRX comes in at 9 pounds, 8.2 ounces. Now, this is the only one out here that has a suppressor on it. It does have a weapon light and a micro 3X. So this is going to be one of the more chunky ones. It's going to be the chunkier of the 5.56s. The RFB is actually too heavy for this scale, so it actually doesn't read it. I have to use more of like a person scale because that's what I have. The RFB comes in at 12.7 pounds as it's set up right here. Okay, so if you have gotten this far in the video, I do appreciate it. I get a little bit rambly and off topic sometimes, but you might be wondering, do I have a favorite? And yes, I do. So full disclosure, I haven't shot the X95 yet, but as far as like handling it and the way it feels, ergonomics and all that stuff, I still have a preference, and that's going to be the MDRX. The MDRX has been my favorite. The RDB Survival, I really like the form factor, and I wish that Desert Tech would make one, or Smith & Wesson has been copying a few Kel-Tecs. I would wish that they would make one. Either company, I think, could do it better and safer and make it reliable. As it sits, Kel-Tec is unreliable and really, really unsafe. And if you haven't seen those videos, then go watch those and you'll see why that I feel that they are unsafe. So the MDRX is my favorite because of the ergonomics. After the first like 100, 150 rounds, it's been reliable since. Those first several magazines, I was pissed. I could not get through a magazine without having a malfunction. Most of them were failure to ejects, and it just wouldn't cycle. And I was pissed because, like I said, the MDRX is my most expensive firearms purchase. And so since it was unreliable, I was livid. So after sleeping on it for a day or two, I was camping, I got it out again, I wanted to try shooting it. I took the ejection cover off, which is the forward ejecting. If you shoot it without that on there, it'll just eject out to the side. I ran it like that for a little while, then I put it back on, I ran it some more, and it started cycling reliably. And since then, I haven't had any issues. Obviously now it's in the micron configuration, so I don't really have to worry about that, the forward ejecting. It has an adjustable gas system. It's piston driven, which I prefer piston. I hate direct impingement. So the MDRX checks that box. It's got charging handles on both sides. It's got safety selectors on both sides, magazine release on both sides. I'm not a huge trigger snob, but the MDRX does have the best trigger out of these, in my opinion. Now, a close second is going to be the PS90, and that's just because of the cool factor. I really like the package, the overall package of it, the size of it, it's really compact. However, it's got a big old plastic trigger, so the trigger does not feel very good in the PS90. I don't like how a lot of videos say that Bullpups have absolutely atrocious triggers. I don't shoot everything in the world, so I don't think their triggers feel that bad. With the PS90, I think it's more because it's like a plastic trigger that it just doesn't feel great, but it doesn't have like, you don't know exactly when it's gonna go off, but I mean, again, it's not terrible by any means. Now, if you did see the video on the RDB Survival, here's where I'm gonna go and compare these other ones to see if they do the same malfunction as the RDB Survival. And that's gonna be the last thing I do in this video, and we're just gonna wrap it up after that. So in that other video, I showed that the RDB Survival and the standard RDB does the same thing, that when the hammer is back, you can pull the trigger and the hammer will follow the bolt home. So here it is, assembled. In that other video, I showed you just the lower. So if I pull the trigger, you can hear the hammer go. If I charge it, you can hear a slight reset. It is very, very faint and not very tactile in the RDB. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the charging handle to the rear. I'm going to release the trigger, and I'm going to pull it again. Now I'm going to release the charging handle, and with all that, I could feel that the hammer followed the bolt home. So now I'm going to release the trigger and pull it again. Dead trigger. Because what happened is the hammer followed the bolt home. No other firearm that I own does that. That leads to double fires, misfires, and burst fire. So now we got the PS90. Okay, so we're going to pull the trigger. You can hear it go off. This one's not as violent when it goes off, but you could hear it. We're gonna charge it and release. Got a little bit of a tactile reset, and you can hear it and feel it. Now, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the RDB. I'm going to keep the trigger depressed. I'm going to pull the charging handle to the rear. I'm going to release the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger again. Release the charging handle. There's the reset. And the hammer goes again. You can even, I'll try pulling it a bunch. Nope, it didn't do the same thing that the RDB does. All right, now we got the MDRX. Okay, you could hear it go off. Charge it. Got a tactile reset, you could hear it, you can feel it. Now if I pull the charging handle back, I hold it in place, I release the trigger, I pull it again, release. There's the reset. Good to go. And you can see this one does not do it. Now we have the X95. There is the release. Little bit, it's not so tactile, but you can hear it. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. Charge the handle back, release the trigger, pull it again. There's the reset, and hammer falls. The X95 doesn't do it. Even the RFB doesn't do it. All right, so we're gonna, okay, trigger goes off. Charge it. Very, like, there's no reset. There's a little bit of a click in the trigger, but there's like no reset. You can't hear it, you can't feel it. But you pull it, and if I release the trigger, pull it again, release the charging handle. So even the RFB doesn't do the same thing as the Survival. And I know it's not a Bullpup, but We can do the same thing with my 7.5 inch SPR. Pull the trigger. Here's the reset. Okay, so now I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to release the trigger and pull it again. Still resets. And the hammer is held back exactly like it's supposed to be. So that wasn't meant to show you like how the trigger is, how great it is, or anything like that. That was to show you that the RDB line of rifles has a really unsafe flaw that Kel-Tec refuses to repair, and that none of the other firearms that I own do the same thing. So really the goal with this video was to just kind of give you an overall comparison of a few bullpups. These are just ones that I own. There's more out there like the Hellion, the AUG, they're all on my wish list. I just haven't gotten them yet. Maybe that will guide you in a direction that you want to get into the bullpup game. I just highly suggest staying away from the RDB line. That's just my suggestion. You can do whatever you want. This is definitely not an inexpensive road to go down. So you've been warned. And if you want to see any more videos, more in depth on like the build, what I have into them or anything like that, leave a comment below and we can do individual videos and I can go through the setup that I have if you're interested. And I guess we'll catch you on the next project. See ya.